Hey there, everybody. Robert Taylor with Wonderscape Creations, starting off this Narrative Pro tutorial series. Thank you guys for joining me on this, and let's go ahead and get started. A few things to make sure that you need to make sure you have done is right here, this Narrative Pro 2 tutorial installation and setup. Make sure you've done this. Now, if you're watching this later in the future, this video may be outdated. You need to find the most recent version of Narrative Pro 2's tutorial installation and setup, and make sure that you have that set up correctly. Now, go ahead and close that. Little bit of a heads up. I am going to be taking this at a new user's pace, not just new to Narrative Pro or Narrative plugins in general. But over the past several months, there have been more and more people flooding into Unreal Engine, and a lot of them have made a purchase to Narrative Pro. So I'm going to go over a few basics that need to be understood as well, especially if they're extremely new to game development, i.e. they're not coming from Godot or Unity or whatever engine they were using before. So the first thing I need to communicate before we go any further, this is in 5.5. 5.6 came out last week, and I don't plan on touching 5.6 in this part of the series. However, I have seen a lot of requests and issues coming with the metahuman side of things in 5.6, and I'm curious if I can figure it out. So we're going to go ahead, and when I get to that point, I'll spend some extra time seeing if I can get it to work in 5.6, and if I do, I'll make a 5.6 video for the metahuman stuff. That's assuming that the developers of Narrative Pro haven't already put in a fix by the time I get to it. So this first part of the series will take a few weeks, and it's going to go from the very basics of setup all the way through to combat and the odds and ends of spawners and how to utilize everything. In this video, there's going to be a lot of standing around learning type of situations that can't be avoided, but it's 100% necessary. Um, so the first thing we want to do is bring some attention to some nuances that many new people aren't aware of, and even some people who've been in the engine 6, 7, 8 months. I've even met somebody a year and a half who hadn't even messed with the project settings before his entire setup of this whole situation. So let's go ahead and jump into the project settings real quick. So yes, as I said, jump into project settings. And if you look over here to the left side, you're going to see under game, narrative time of day settings. You come in here, dynamic time of day. See, there we go. What happens when you change those things? You can decide the length in minutes for day and night, when sunrise time is and sunset time is. And that's important to note so that if you want to make any changes, you can. That is not all that is here. This is just specifically within game. Now, under engine, if you scroll on down, we have a whole bunch more. You got narrative combat, narrative common UI, narrative navigation, and narrative save system. So let's go ahead, click on that. That's where you can set up quite a few things. And I encourage you to go through and look at all these and remember them. Hey, look at that. Allow friendly fire. Common UI settings. So this is where you can change the colors if you wish. Then you got the navigator settings. So the player's color, friendly color, neutral color, and hostile color. This is where you can change that. I think it's just, yep, cool. And then the save system. So auto load first save in editor. You can always mark that to false. Save game class. If you're wanting to make changes to the class, then you would go ahead and make a child of this. I believe that is it, but we are going to make sure. And if you come here to plugins, And obviously, you're going to now have the editor stuff for narrative dialogue that you can make changes here, and the narrative dialogue gameplay changes, narrative pro changes. So you need to go through all of this stuff and make sure you understand it. Quests. So, and it's like this that way. Say you want to have this is the quest that we all start with, right? Make a child of it that is your game's core um, parent quest. Then you can change this to that one, and you don't have to worry about too much. The additional variables that are there should show up where you need them without an issue. So I do again encourage you to go through this. Now, I'm not sure why that went over there. Let's hop on back in here. Now that we've briefly gone over the project settings, there's an additional step that I would encourage on top of everything that you've already done to get the project started, to ensure that you don't run into any issues if there are plugin updates that you want to add, or at least fewer issues. You will always sometimes run into something. Let me go ahead and pull over this right here. Sorry, I've got a bunch of monitors. So, what we want to do is we need to come over here and in world settings, I want to come to the game mode override. So I'm going to select over here on this one because I want to keep these other ones open. And I'm going to hit this browse to asset. So I have the narrative game mode. The first thing you want to do to ensure that you run into absolutely no issues. Whoops, went to the wrong one. There we go. Go in here to content. Let's make this bigger because we're not going to need too much more. You need to set up your file structure. It's important that you think about this ahead of time. This is how everything starts out. This is where the queues are at currently. Now, the beautiful thing is, after you've done this, now we can move the queues where we actually want them. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to create a new folder called Wonderscape Creations. And you always want to make sure you name it whatever your project is. That way you can easily find it. I always like to do an underscore so that it's always at the front. Obviously, if you do underscore and it starts with a letter that's earlier than W, then it won't be in the front anymore. But anyways, we go ahead and open this up. And this is where we're going to put everything. Blueprints, systems, UI, all of that. The first thing we will do, new folder, game mode. I do things a little differently because you have two options that are generally used. Either you have everything sorted out. Whoops. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Like this, where you have the audio, then you have all of the audio in one place, all of the effects in one place. Come over here. We have all of the abilities, all the AI in one place, all the animations in one place. You can do it that way, or you can do it more of a systems approach, meaning we have the game mode, and then say we have, we choose combat, then everything combat is in there from the blueprints all the way to the textures. Everything combat would then be in there. It's completely and totally up to you how you do it. You just need to know how you're doing it for your project. For me, I'm going to go through the systems approach of things. So in game mode, I'm going to go ahead and come up here to the narrative game mode that we all already have set up because we followed that tutorial. I'm going to right click on the BP narrative game mode, and I'm going to create child blueprint class. And I'm going to name mine BP Wonderscape Creation Tutorial. Well, tut, but that's what I'll keep it at. Hit enter. Then I'm going to move it over here. Move here. Fantastic. So now we need to do the exact same thing with everything that's sitting right here. and one additional thing. And you may be wondering what that one additional thing is. We'll do that at the end of this video. Now, to explain real quick for those who are completely and totally brand new, the reason we do this is now if we need to make a change to the game mode, we can make it here instead of in here. That way, if there's a change, it doesn't affect what we've done, and if they add anything, we get that stuff in what we currently have. Fantastic, right? So let's go ahead and do that with everything else that is in here. So we got the game mode. Right click, create child blueprint class, BP underscore. I'm just going to go short with WC game state. That over here. And do the controller, BP underscore WC player controller. Now, obviously, you can have your naming convention however you want. I just encourage you that you keep your my brain fried for a second. That you keep your naming convention consistent across the entirety of everything. Right click, BP underscore WC main menu. Move that here. We got the game mode, we got the state, native narrative game instance, BP underscore WC game instance. BP underscore WC controller. Main menu. Move here. Then camera manager. We won't be doing anything with this right now, but down the road we will be. WC camera manager. Now let's go ahead and move that here. Now let's open this up. Make this a little smaller so that we can see everything. There we go. Now then, first thing we need to do is narrative game state. We have our new game state that we made, the player controller. We have the WC player controller, player state. We have not currently made it. That is fine. We're going to go ahead and do that now. Create a child off screen. WC player state. Move here. There we go. Narrative player we have not done yet, but we're going to go ahead and do that now. So again, we need to search for that one, and you will find that under Narrative Pro Content Blueprint Characters, and there it is. Create child blueprint, BP underscore WC player base. Move that back over here. Then I'll move that over here as well. And we will move that right there. So now any changes that are made, we are good to go. Now the next thing we are going to do is come in here, compile and save it. Now let's go ahead and go to our game mode. So to do that, project settings, scroll all the way back up here to the top, maps and modes, default game mode. Mine for some reason says game mode base, so there was a step I missed somewhere, because usually it would say something else, but that's fine. So we will now go to WC, that's right. I named mine Wonderscape Creation Tut. There we go. Now if I go down, all the new stuff is set up how it should be. Now, right here is where our game instance is down here at the bottom. We're going to open it up, change that game instance right there. So, that right there is everything we needed to do to prepare ourselves for the future videos and to ensure you have that extra buffer. That way, when there's changes, it doesn't affect what you are working on. The only other thing I will go ahead and mention now is we briefly talked over parent and children because these are children of the parents that we went from. You need to make sure that you go ahead and do that with everything within the Narrative Pro content plugins. If making a child won't work for what you're trying to do, drag it out, create a new folder in your Wonderscape creations. That reminds me, I'll go ahead and name this one Combat. And I'm going to open this up again, Gas. And I'm going to grab these cues and we're going to move it into Gas here. Now, because we moved it and moved several things, make sure you right click on content, update, update redirector references. If there are any, go ahead and go through the process to remove them. That way you don't run into any issues. Now, the reason that we want to do this again is to keep everything clean, to make it to where you can do everything that you need to do in your project without having to worry about losing any information. Now, the reason you are moving, the reasons you would have to move anything, let's say this dodge cost from this gameplay effect into here, is if there's something that isn't exposed, you need to add to it, whatever. Then when there is a new update, you shouldn't run into any issues unless you are directly using something that is still within the Narrative Pro content folder that you didn't move or make a child of. So please make sure you do that. Now there's one more issue before we go. I'm sure, and I've seen several people comment it about having this issue. We're not going to see the problem on mine anymore because I went ahead and fixed it. This issue has been here since 5.4, I believe, is the first time I noticed it. So when you shoot, usually this is what you're supposed to see. But you may be seeing these bulky squares. And this is not a Narrative Pro issue. This is something that's been happening for a couple of versions now. If we come over here, that's why I've left this open. If you see this black texture, I open it up, look at that, it's changed. For some reason, some of the textures aren't loading in like they're supposed to when they're being utilized. So what you're going to need to do is go to the, let's go ahead and back here into the game mode. We'll go to the actual game mode once I find it. I believe it's this one. No, I already had it open over here. So if we come over here to the player, come to default items, and then you search for the demo rifle, which is right here, and then you come in here to the demo rifle and you go to the visuals, which is right there. You'll see these. You need to go through them. Click on this one to show. And you'll see right here we've got a material. For me, this was black. I didn't see anything. I had to open up the material, go in here, find the texture, and open the texture up. Then it loaded in as it should. You're going to need to do that. If there's an actual fix for it that I'm unaware of, I apologize. If any of you guys know it, please let me know so that I can stop going through this monotonous set of tasks, because there's quite a few of them. And it only happens with a new project, or if you're downloading somebody else's project for the first time. So it's when it's on your computer for the first time that the issue happens, with a new project, obviously. Um, I know that was a lot to take in. Yes, we're going to be going over the actual weapons and the visuals and this data asset and the default player character. We're getting to all of that very soon. In the next episode, we will start diving into this default player. We'll make our own, and we'll start learning everything there is to learn about this and how to utilize it and what's connected to it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.